5 statements are given below, labeled A, B, C, D, and E. Among these, 4 statements are in logical order and form a coherent paragraph passage. From the given options, choose the option that does not fit into the theme of the passage. Okay, so let's read, take a couple of seconds. Read. Much of the modern use of metals happens behind closed doors of corporations under the veil of trade secrets. Okay. He chooses to restrict his analysis to metals and metalloids which could face more critical constraints because many of them are relatively rare. Okay. Even if we can find out how certain metals are used, it may not always be possible to determine the proportions they are used in. The author's compromise was to account for the use of 80% of the material that is made available each year through extraction and recycling. Their compromise was to account for the use of 80% of the material that is made available each year through extraction and recycling. So D and E, the only difference is in D it says the author's compromise, in E it says their compromise. Everything else is the same. Just an observation, right? So in terms of logical connect, so we're finding the odd one out, right? So basically, this is all, everything is talking about metal extraction, right? And how it is used. So B is actually giving me the crux of it, don't you think? The analysis, he's restricting his analysis to metals and metalloids, which could face more critical constraints because many of them are relatively rare. Okay, this seems like a pretext actually. And then A says, much of the modern use of metals happens behind closed doors of corporations under the veil of trade secrets. So it's not very prominent, it's not something that they do in the open. Under the veil of trade secrets. So even if we can find out how certain metals are used, it may not always be possible to determine the proportions they are used in. So again, this is talking about why, because we don't have enough information on what's happening, because everything is happening behind closed doors. So for me, D and E is more of a repeat, right? It makes sense. See, I'm a little confused. I'll tell you why. Because I can either have D or I can have E. I can't have both this in the passage, right? It doesn't make sense. Again, B doesn't seem relevant to the current passage, right? It's talking about, it may be related to the entire concept. I'm sure this is taken from a larger context, right? So, again, quickly putting it out there, I can't have both D and E in the same passage. Their compromise, the author's compromise. It has to be only one. That's one thing. The other one is, in this paragraph, right, because we are specifically referring to this paragraph, this doesn't seem like a fit. It seems like something either which is earlier or after. Yeah. So I would say B definitely does not fit this paragraph, right? And I could only choose one of these options. Yeah, exactly. So the authors, I would just say D again is, out of these two, I will eliminate D, which is not the right fit. So this, I don't know, is Arvind here? I don't know the context from which this was taken, but like I said, my first bet would be B. I would go with B, right? Because it seems like from an earlier context and not pertaining to this paragraph, right? And again, in these two, one of it has to go. Yeah, I think if it's a, what do I say, punctuation error, it could be a punctuation error or it may not be a punctuation error, I'm not too sure. But let's go with B for this.